Hello everyone, welcome to the first game on my new channel, Harstem Cast. Today we're going to be starting with a very special game, as we have Demour versus a barcode. Now, if you're not very familiar with these names, well, obviously barcodes are always around, but Demour is ShoWTimE, currently the best European protoss player, and the barcode player is Reynor, who is of course the number 2 in the world, or well, was last BlizzCon at least, where he lost the Dark in the final, managed to take out Serral in the semis, and now this is a ladder game that got sent to me by Reynor that was recently played on the European ladder. ShoWTimE currently has the number 1 spot on the ladder, so interesting to see a clash between those two players. One of the best matchups actually that ShoWTimE has probably is his PvZ with an extremely high win rate. I want to say somewhere around 80-85%, which is absolutely insane. Most top 16 players have a win rate between 62 to maybe 70-72 if you get to the higher echelon of players. But ShoWTimE with a plus 80% win rate in that matchup, an absolute monster. Plays a very specific style as well, that very curious if we're going to see that once again this game. As we see Reynor in the bottom left, just slowly mining that gas, getting ready for that early game where most likely Adepts and Oracles will be the flavor of the day for ShoWTimE, who is known for a very specific opener where he opens with 4 Adepts from his initial gateway before Warp Gate finishes and moves out with those 4 Adepts, putting on a lot of pressure on the Zerg very early, then going into 3 extra Oracles, which doesn't quite put as much pressure on the Zerg, but almost always will be able to manage to snag a few drones here and there and get a lead in that way. Then followed up, he will play a style that most of the time is a no storm style, so a style that is heavily focused on zealot run-bys and doing damage through harassment while building up a massive Archon Immortal Ball without storm. So very different from what we've seen over the past year and a half, at least in Europe. A very aggressive style, a very momentum-based style that requires a lot of good control of the map, good control of the units, and good judgments of fights as well. So here we have the first Overlord of Reynor getting pushed back onto the little perf spot where he will be able to basically remain full vision of this natural base, at least have vision of one of the gases. Now, it's not going to be the build that I had expected from ShoWTimE. Instead, he will be opening up with an Adept Stalker Adept, or just a straight Stalker Adept. So we only see 2 units actually being built by him into Oracle still and 2 gates. So slightly different opener. And now this is a trick here, because if the Zerg sees Adept Stalker, a lot of the time they will believe it's going to be some kind of Twilight opener, especially if you get a relatively quick Warp Gate as well. So something you can do, and it looks like ShoWTimE is going to be doing that, is he's going to be saving up 2 Oracles here, and then he will be moving these around the edge of the map into the main base to try and get some drone kills. Reynor isn't having none of it though, and usually against a fast Twilight Council, what you want to do is you want to get a fast lair, you want to skip your spores, and get slightly faster gases and a fast Roach Warren. So we see Reynor doing some of that, right? We see a spore, so playing it kind of safe, but still that very fast Roach Warren, getting a bunch of links as well, and cutting drones relatively early at 39 supply. He will be getting 9 more, but a good link count might be able to deny this 3rd base for a while, as the first 2 Oracles have gone completely unspotted by Reynor so far. Will be heading into the main base, where they will find a Queen and that Spore. The only base actually with a Spore so far. Natural was being guarded only by a single Queen, 2 Queens, 3rd Queen popping. Oh, ShoWTimE, a little bit of miscontrol there. Will lose his first Oracle without doing any damage. Killed 1 worker so far. Of course, not quite what you want for a unit that is worth 150. Now here comes a 5 Adept move out. This isn't quite the same one that I was expecting. This is a later Adept move out, as he had to wait for Warp Gate to finish. His third base is extremely delayed as well, and we see Reynor happily producing a couple more links, as well as an Evo chamber finishing up. Most likely will be used for +1 melee attack. This is ShoWTimE setting up for some kind of flyby. Now, a very common trick on a map like this is to show yourself at the third base and then poke your head into the main, lift that queen, and then with the double oracle kill as many drones as you can. Reynor, of course, he was not born yesterday. He's aware of this trick, built a second spore crawler. ShoWTimE is like, hey, wait a second. Wanted to go for the queen, but now all of a sudden he can't because there's 2 spores there. So we'll try to go into the natural with good queen movement out of Reynor here. We'll deny major losses. So far 4 Stargate units have been built. 1 of them has died and only 2 workers have fallen so far. So an absolutely fantastic start here for Reynor, who's heading into an extremely quick +1 with a fast fourth base as well. Now it's got slightly out of position by these 2 adepts, 2 more in the main base. This was a prism first from the Robo, a very rare play that we almost never see anymore these days, and we'll be able to actually net ShoWTimE 8 kills, which kind of makes up for the complete lack of damage he was able to do through these 2 oracles. Now, a special thing about this fourth base is that it has a rich Vespene geyser. So a lot of the time what we see Zerg players do is they'll forgo one of the gases in either their main or their natural or third base and take this gas extremely fast, as it basically counts as a double gas. Meanwhile, we see ShoWTimE increasing his gateway count before he takes his gases, which probably means we're going to see some aggression from him. Usually Protoss wants to take those gases as fast as possible to get a healthy Archon count. Reynor, meanwhile, is moving around with these links, trying to get some information. If he sees the lack of gases, he probably will know what's happening. So he does spot it. Ooh, starts 5 drones. Very interesting response, honestly. I would have thought he would be a lot more careful. Actually, he starts 9 more drones. Wow. So even though he scouts with 4 gas Protoss, he decides to go into a very high worker count. That is extremely odd to me. I wonder if he actually was paying attention or if this is more automatic pilot, because I mean these gases are so late, and everything so far that ShoWTimE has been doing is really signaling towards a big push that will collapse onto the fourth base of Reynor. Reynor still has a big run by squad setup as well. Oracles will be able to deal with that, as well as this cannon plus battery combination. Now here comes the army of ShoWTimE. There's a lot of money in the bank. We'll be able to warp in. Let's see if Reynor will be able to hold 84 drones. That's a massive drone count against ShoWTimE, who is doing I don't want to call this an all-in, but this is a very dedicated push. We'll be moving into the fourth base. No gas taken there yet. Banelings coming in. Good surround with those links. Some stellar force fields being placed down as well by ShoWTimE, but I don't think it's going to be enough to kill Reynor here. Still a lot of Banes, and Zealots against Banes is not quite what you want to be fighting with. Storm starting, so ShoWTimE completely changing the plan from what I've seen him play in the past few weeks. We'll be heading into the main base with this Prism. This was a fantastic call, by the way, by ShoWTimE. A lot of Protosses will continue pushing in, be like, maybe I can do more, like I'm so dedicated to this push. But instead ShoWTimE is like, you know, I'll change speeds, I'll start dropping into your main, try to do some damage with these 2 oracles that I still have. I return home to a couple of Templars and try to establish a fourth base myself. Now we see this Phoenix trying to poke away this Overlord, trying to remove vision that Reynor desperately needs. Reynor, by the way, who is not showing any signs of heading into Hive yet. No infestation pit on the way yet, so we'll be going for a big push. Double upgrades on the way. We see +2 being very close to finishing. Now +2 for Banelings, of course, is well known for being able to one-shot probes. And I mean, it also just does a lot of extra damage against Archons and Immortals. Interesting fight position here for Reynor, but this fourth base is so difficult to collapse upon. So difficult to attack being Reynor. This map in general makes it hard to attack. Interesting wall off here by ShoWTimE, who... This is one of the only maps that's possible to wall off with 2 buildings if you do it very well, but instead he opts for a wall that with a single gateway just completely walls off this area as well, making the mid-game way more comfortable to play for him. So he loses a little bit of utility in the early game for a way more comfortable mid-game, as the 2 oracles professionally push this little Ravager squad away. Of course, oracles do a lot of damage to a Ravager specifically, who's the big Baneling run by, heading towards the 4th base where there's absolutely nothing, not a single Archon. Oh, one Archon morphing in might be able to save the day as a semi-wall is being set up. This is almost enough Banelings to just straight up kill the Nexus. We'll be going for the cannons instead, and we'll be saving them for later on as ShoWTimE decides to move on the map once again. Maxed supply this time around. There's some action happening here, just a Phoenix. 97 workers for Reynor, which means his army is a lot smaller than it could be. It means he only has 100 army supply. ShoWTimE meanwhile at 120 army supply, mainly consisting of Archons and Immortals. There is still 20 Zealots, and Zealots don't do very well in a straight up fight. What you want is you want to run by. There we go. Big run by being set up most likely towards that natural base, as we have ShoWTimE rotating towards the 5th base of Reynor with his main army. Where are those Templar, by the way? Slacking behind, can't start a fight without those Templars. Zealots in front will be going in for a run by. Might want to try to trigger some of those Banelings. This is a rather useless trade here for ShoWTimE, who loses 5 Zealots, as the Baneling count of Reynor is growing up to 48 right now. Plus 3 stars, Blink is about to be finished, and Fleet Beacon on the way. So it looks like we're going into a good old late game. ShoWTimE is still trying to get some damage done. We see 3-4 Zealots being sent into that 4th base. This run by is being cleaned up by Reynor as well, and ShoWTimE actually in a very dangerous position here for Reynor, who still has a lot of drones and a rather small army. Decent storms, don't really connect with the roaches though. A lot of the Banelings have disappeared. A big Baneling flank coming in from the top. Will Storms be able to deal with this? Not quite. All the Banelings explode on top of the Archons. I think Reynor might just be able to hold this with his 2-2 upgrades against just a +2 ShoWTimE. Absolutely destroys this push. With a very high worker count, so this will be setting up Reynor for a fantastic late game. It's interesting, as we see he does have this gas right now. We'll be heading into Greater Spire as well. Adrenal glands, of course. There's a lot of extra damage output from those Zerglings. Will be especially helpful with run-bys and little skirmishes with groups of Zealots, basically. Of course, they'll still suck extremely hard against Archons, but it's something to keep in mind here. Once Adrenal Glands finishes, that cannon setups are a little more exposed to just pure links. 2 Oracles. These guys have been putting in the work, by the way. Look at this, 14 kills for both Oracles, and that not a lot of that is drones. They only got like 4 or 5 drones in total, and the rest of that is most likely Ravagers and Banelings. So very cost-effective Oracles here for ShoWTimE, who will be heading into a mothership. Do we see a second Stargate yet? No, we only have a single Stargate on the map, which means ShoWTimE most likely will be staying. Oh, big engagement. Reynor trying to get some damage done here. And as you can see, these players are always doing 2 things at once. Well, in Reynor's case, sometimes 3 things at once, as these Banelings split off. Big run by, and don't forget it, if they connect onto the probes, they will die immediately. Uh-oh. Reynor kind of tricking ShoWTimE here into moving into his main army. ShoWTimE still had a very healthy worker count though, so not too worried here for ShoWTimE. We'll be adding those 2 extra Stargates right now and starts producing carriers as well as his +1 air weapons upgrade. Now the one thing that ShoWTimE does have going for him is that there's not a lot of creep on the map, and a lack of creep also lacks vision for the Zerg player, of course. We see the Zerg vision isn't actually that great, especially if he does not occupy the watchtowers. Now, on top of that, this map is very good for protoss in the sense that it's difficult to do run-bys for the Zerg. There's really only 2 major paths that the Zerg can take. This path, which is blocked by a tower, and then there's this path, which can be blocked by positioning your army here. So very little effort needs to be done to stop any kind of run by, which means that most likely ShoWTimE will be able to get into a very, very comfortable late game here with a big carrier count. I wouldn't be surprised if he tries for 1 more push early on. With a maxed army, he has +3 done, 2-3 carriers, and that mothership, as really Reynor's army still is a, well, technically this is a tier 1 army, right? It's Lynx, Roaches and Banelings and Ravagers, which can all be built from hatchery tech. This is not really what you need to fight Immortal, Archon, Storm, Carrier. much rather you have some Brood Lords, some Infestors, a couple of Vipers with Corruptors. So you see a big run by being set up here by Reynor. Oh, does find himself some sentries and decide it's not worth his trouble bumping into a force field. As long as these rocks are up, this is going to be very difficult for Reynor to run by. Meanwhile, we saw ShoWTimE playing a little bit of dodgeball with those Ravagers here. Still one Ravager remains in the main base, a little bit of a Zealot drop, try to do some damage. This is I think ShoWTimE is misreading this situation and actually believes that there's Broodlords out already. If he was aware of the army composition of Reynor right now, I am 90% sure he would be trying to force a fight somewhere around this area. Nice closed off ramps, maybe over here, then walk down to the 5th base where it's difficult to get flanked. And if you have a big army supply with big amounts of Archons, Immortals and that mothership, you're just going to be in a fantastic position. So Vipers do start now and a couple of Corruptors are being sprinkled in as well, but that really should not be enough to deal with the 5 carriers that are out already and the massive ground army that ShoWTimE possesses. Still has the 2 Oracles alive as well, will actually be helpful here as he should help clearing this little area. Still has a force field ready as well. ShoWTimE used the force field on the gate. Does use it at the last moment. Very, very patient play by him. 2 Immortals come out to help as well. You see the Overseer spotting the main base right now. I wonder if Reynor was aware of how many carriers there were on the map already, because I don't think he was. Right now we see a second Spire on the way as well as additional Corruptors being added. ShoWTimE going for a little bit of a split push setup here. See a 2 carrier Immortal Zealot run by onto the 6th base of Reynor while he's just edging along the creep without an observer. I have to say that's a little disappointing. Observer's very helpful in, of course, denying that creep, giving you some extra vision. Good recall here by ShoWTimE though, who does manage to save both of his carriers and his 2 oracles. Oh, actually recalled to the mothership, which is even cooler if you ask me. That way he saves the recall at the Nexus. Now we have 2 more Stargates. How many Stargates is ShoWTimE going up to? So there's 3 already, 2 more being built. That means 5 Stargates will be ready. +2 is on the way as well for ShoWTimE. Or for Reynor, excuse me. As well as +1 Flyer armor. Now this is very scary and Reynor is so good at this control where he just flies around with these Corruptor Vipers and seemingly coming from every angle. It feels like he has map hacks sometimes, where he will just be able to pick off a carrier left, right and center while doing these big run-bys that he is so known for, with these Lings, with these Banelings, and I guess in this case Roaches as well. 3 upgrades on these Roaches. No carapace upgrades yet for ground, but it's being started right now. As ShoWTimE, be careful. There's a big army here with a couple of Vipers. There, yes, there they go. This is what I was talking about. First 2 carriers do get abducted. First carrier falls as well as the second one, and a couple of storms do hit these Corruptors, but that's not good enough. If you don't finish anything, you're just bleeding out money being ShoWTimE, losing interceptors. Oh, perhaps even losing the mothership. Ooh, falls at the final second, -400 there for ShoWTimE. At the same time, he's losing a lot of workers on the other side of the map to these Roaches and Banelings, which are absolutely destroying this mineral line. 3 Archons will be able to clean this up. We see +3 flyer attacks, or air weapons, as well as air armor being started here for ShoWTimE. He already has +1. Shield is on level 2 as well, so very good upgrades for both players here, but I feel like Reynor's control so far has been absolutely fantastic in this late game. Just moving around with 1 ground army and then 1 air army with just Viper Corruptor practically. There's not even that many Broodlords. Look, there's only 4 Broodlords. Funnily enough, against this composition, you could consider secretly killing off all of your carriers, just going mass ground and surprising your opponent, because there actually isn't a lot that attacks ground right now. There's only 5 Broodlords. Reynor is realizing he probably needs a couple more. Here we go. Decides to build 2 extra Broodlords. He's like, alright, I'm not getting tricked like that. Probably lost a couple too many times to a trick like that, where he does end up killing the Air Force, then just dies to Zealot Archon as a follow-up. while you're morphing your Broodlords from your 25 Corruptors. Oh, once again these pulls by Reynor. I never quite know how he does it. It's like he almost feels, like it has like an instinct of where his opponent's army is, and that's exactly where his Corruptor Viper crew is going to be right now, looking for a pick-off. Oh, won't be able to find it, just gets feedback, but that's completely fine. Vipers regain their health. You can just consume some more energy from those hatches, as we saw Reynor once again attempt another run by, didn't manage to clear the wall, but will be pushed back in the end by this ground army of ShoWTimE. It's looking okay economically, right? Both players at around 60 workers. Don't want to get too many workers in this case, as it would make your army a lot smaller. Overseer still scouting around. Finally will get cleaned up by a Stalker and a cannon perhaps. Yeah, should be able to get that if he blinks. Well, probably not very focused on that at the moment. Oh, yeah, Dust Eye actually did blink. Or he ran down really fast while I wasn't looking. More likely that he blinked though. Now we see ShoWTimE's vision is quite limited. His mothership is rebuilding as well, so it's scary to move on the map without that cloak. Somehow this force managed to completely run by Reynor's vision. And this will be quite a surprise. Reynor's not in position with his main army, or his main army of dealing with run-by squads. There's no spine crawlers here whatsoever, and Reynor also actually needs to be careful of this little push here, so needs to be dealing with ShoWTimE 2 plays at once, loses a lot of drones. And it's not the end of the world, but it is rather expensive, of course. Going down to 38 workers means his income is rather low. Double prism being used to try and snipe those two spires. Might actually be able to get at least one of them. Still a couple of transfuses left on this queen, will not be used. Spire falls, Spire gets immediately rebuilt. ShoWTimE got a little bit over-eager at the same time, gets fungled by these infestors and will lose one carrier, so Reynor does get something for his trouble. But I'm starting to get a little bit afraid here for Reynor, who is looking been looking very good so far in the control battles, but every time this harassment, ShoWTimE sneaking in places where he really shouldn't be. Now he has the mothership, he can perhaps do some recall plays where he attacks on one side and recalls on the other. ShoWTimE very well known for this. We have a bunch of changelings trying to spot. Uh-oh, this is a big run by, and there's... Oh! I was gonna say there's nothing ready, but ShoWTimE is a lot faster than I am. He already has a couple of Archons ready, warps in 3 more Templar, might use them to morph, might use them for Storm. Difficult to say sometimes, as this is a very compact map, so it's difficult to do attacks. That doesn't only count for Zerg, of course, but Protoss also has trouble getting damage in, so it really is looking like a longer game. As I say that, Reynor is managing to get a little bit of damage in at least. We'll be able to get that cannon, spots where his opponent's army is, and oh my god, this is what I'm talking about. He just moves in, he's like, yeah, there might be a carrier there, and snipes out the carrier, carrier dies. And these things really do add up, like that's 5 carriers that have fallen already, and only a single Viper and a single Corruptor have gone down. So these trades with Corruptor Viper against the carriers have been so good. Don't forget he also already managed to snipe a mothership. Now there is a tag on Reynor currently, so he won't be able to do any of that. Revelation, of course, revealing the movement of the unit, so ShoWTimE will be a little more careful and will be going in for another tag. We'll get it indeed. Hallucination assisting with spotting his opponent's army. ShoWTimE still completely in position with his run by army, as Reynor finally will be able to build Broodlords again soon, as his Greater Spire is halfway to finishing. How many carriers is this? We have 12 carriers, 1 Void Ray and 9 High Templars. Not all of them, of course, with the main army. We still have a little bit of a run-by squad. I would love this run-by squad to have an observer with it as well, so you can clear creep on 2 sides at the same time. Always helps, of course. The less vision your opponent has, the more difficult it is for your opponent to do anything with that Corruptor Viper squad and to react to your army rotations. Here comes that run-by. Observer was there indeed, but a big spore wall will be able to push that away. Banelings detonate on top of all of these High Templars as they fall. Once again a good trade for Reynor, so finally starting to slowly pull ahead in those resources lost. And he's really starting to get that creep in. You see, if we were talking earlier, he really only had the low grounds with creep. Now he also has the high grounds covered with creep, and soon he will be going into the protoss territory, basically. This is discouraging ShoWTimE from doing any kind of run by, and also making it really difficult for him to react to run bys from Reynor, because Reynor moves around and rotates so quickly when he has creep everywhere. They will be almost impossible for ShoWTimE to not be surprised. So, oh, changelings once again spotting some units out, and here comes Reynor. Oh, ShoWTimE is too fast. Reynor trying to go in once again with that Viper Corruptor squad. Won't be able to get his opponent's units. Big recall being forced here. Some Ravagers will be able to take down. No, battery does survive, but this is annoying for ShoWTimE, and he only has a single Nexus recall at a time. He still has 2 recalls remaining on this mothership. Oh my god. Was that 1 or 2? No, that was just 1. Another carrier falls. Now once again this rotation coming in from Reynor, who's just swapping his air army with his ground army. Then he attacks the right, then he attacks the left, then he attacks the right again. +3 air armor will fall, and these lings will make its way into the base. Ravagers as well. Oh! Reynor wants it. It's so sick. Like, this is really one of the best late game Protoss players there is in the world. ShoWTimE, that is, and sometimes it feels like Reynor is just clowning on him. You know, just attacking everywhere, Corruptors peeing on buildings. Lings in the main will be able to barely won't be able to snipe that Nexus. A couple of Ravagers moving back as well, so I guess this was the 7th base will fall for ShoWTimE, but that isn't the biggest issue. The biggest issue I see for ShoWTimE is that I don't think he will ever be able to take either this base or this base. So in a split map scenario, I think Reynor's going to have a massive advantage, where I think Reynor 100% will be able to take this base, and this base perhaps might not be taken by anyone. The way it's looking right now, ShoWTimE's already having trouble holding this area, so how in the hell is he ever going to be able to get there? Without completely losing his main base, of course. Like, he could just give up all of this, but then you need to rebuild that. That costs a lot of money. I'd love to see another run by into the main base. There's still 50 links on the map. Reynor has different plans. He's like, I know your main base is open, but you're probably expecting that. So instead I will be going towards your 6th base, which at this point for ShoWTimE really is the only base that is still truly mining, right? Like, there's not that many mineral patches on the other base anymore, and a couple of Ravagers really assisting in taking down those cannons. As we see, he's just looking for opportunity. It's so cool to see. I would love to see a couple of changelings being spammed as well. Roach being burrowed. They actually get pretty good vision. I'm surprised. Could even use some burrowed roaches perhaps to spot for any kind of carrier rallies. We see more void rays being added as well, and ShoWTimE's army really is growing very massive, but so is Reynor's. Don't forget, every time they lose workers, it means they're also increasing their army size if they don't rebuild those workers. Yeah, and this is what I was talking about. Once Reynor gets this base, he secures this general area, and that means that the main base is just going to be open season for the main base here for Reynor, as ShoWTimE is moving towards this side of the map where there's a surprisingly low amount of spores. As I say that, I see that there's about 15 spores covering these 2 areas, so I think Reynor is gonna be fine. I was thinking these are spores, and I saw creep tumors, like, oh, perhaps there's no spores at all, but of course Reynor is well prepared. Let's see how good the control will be here for Reynor. Whoop! Gets, well, doesn't actually manage to target the void ray, so only ends up getting, no, not a single void ray even. Oh, come back here, sir. Keeps pulling void rays, but doesn't actually manage to finish them. That was very sloppy there by Reynor, who pulled 4 or 5 void rays in, but only managed to kill a single one. How many pulls do we still have left on these Corruptors? Oh, some neural parasite going down of all these carriers. 5-6 carriers are being destroyed. Storms raining down on top of this infestor ball as well, and I have absolutely no clue what is happening in this fight, but I see ShoWTimE supply dropping very rapidly. A bit of a recall with anything that's left. 2 carriers remain. Oh, ShoWTimE. And what are you recalling to? Recall towards his 4th base, but the main base was being absolutely ransacked by Ravagers and Lings at the same time. +2 armor being researched at this point for ShoWTimE. I'm not sure what for, but as he figured, I'm just gonna get all the upgrades. Oh, and here comes Reynor's mighty air fleet once again. How many corruptors still remain alive? 36. What's there left for the carrier force? 5-6 carriers, couple of storms raining down on top of the corruptors that are really low right now. There's still one storm left. Is not going to be enough. Void Ray does pop. Might be able to actually take down a couple of corruptors. I actually think this might be it. Reynor completely out of money. GG gets called as Reynor wins this beautiful ladder game. Taking out ShoWTimE, who is, like I mentioned, one of the top protoss players right now in Europe and perhaps the world. Managed to get top 12 at the latest IEM Katowice, so definitely a top contender, but fantastic late game here by Reynor. Now, if you did enjoy the video, please subscribe to my channel and like the video. Leave something down in the comment if you have any game suggestions you want to see casted, as this channel I'll be exclusively using for casting games. Then of course I also have my main channel, which is just youtube.com/Harstem, where I'll be uploading all my other shows. Is it Inbar or Do I Suck? So if you do fancy that, check that out as well. Thanks everyone for watching. See you boys in the next video. Bye bye.